Charles Wang was a very loyal man. He loved making connections with people, and he had a very strong connection with Garth Snow. When Garth Snow retired from being the Islanders goalie, it was Wang who hired him to be the Islanders GM. In their time working together, they formed quite a bond. Garth Snow even saying that he loved the man. And earlier this morning, he opened up about their relationship in this touching interview.
He had the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, especially when it came to kids and people who were less fortunate in the world. And that's going to be the lasting impression on me is how well he treated people who were less fortunate. And boy, did he love kids. Whenever we would be together, he would see a kid that was at the hockey game, and he'd get the key and open up his closet and hand him a jersey, a hat, pictures of their favorite player, hockey sticks. He just went above and beyond to put a smile on people's face. And he's going to be sorely missed by, as I said, by many in Long Island. And one story I have on a personal level, when I first signed here in 2001, my own brother, who was 4 years older than me, he was 36 years old at the time, was going through a battle with leukemia. And he received a bone marrow transplant, and about 13, 14 months later, it came back, and he wasn't really in a good place. And we were in Lake Placid for training camp. And it was the first time I met Charles, and he pulls me aside and asked me what I was doing here. And I said, well, I'm part of the team. My family, I can go up there, Massachusetts, on days off, and he allowed me the ability to spend a couple of weeks with my brother, and from that point on, our friendship flourished. So that's just one story of how he affected one player. And when you talk to players, former players, they'll have the same type of stories, and he's going to be sorely missed.
Comments and tributes to Charles Wang have poured in as word got around on Sunday that he lost his life. And obviously the Islanders family losing one of their own. Several players, past and present, reached out. They wanted to honor Charles. They wanted to share a little bit about his legacy and help paint a picture of his life and how much he has meant to so many people.
Just an overall great man. I think the amount of people, children around the world that he's been able to impact throughout the course of his life, and moving forward that he'll still be able to impact, is truly impressive, and really kind of shows the type of person that he was. And I could think back to meeting him for the first time, and just such a nice man. And one night we went to one of his charity events in the city. There was probably a handful of us, one of my first couple of years, and just for coming in, he gave us his limo for the night and said have fun, and just little stuff like that. He was very very willing to give back and wanted to, and he'll be missed for sure.
Well, anytime you ran into Charles, you could see the excitement that he had, not only in seeing you, but being with the team, being around the guys. You know how much he cared for the team and for the Islanders community and everyone here on Long Island, and he put a lot of energy into our team, and you could see that anytime you ran into him.
Well, when I first got drafted by the Islanders, my first training camp, walking around with Garth, Charles was there, introduced me to him right away. Big smile on his face. Known to be a pretty big hugger with his players, gave me a hug, and just really genuinely wanted to get to know each and every one of us. And it's one thing when you're part of the New York Islanders roster of 23 players, but this was when I was a 17-year-old draft pick who was going back to junior, and really wasn't a part of the team yet, and took the time to talk to me, and really noticed that he took the time to talk to everybody. I think he genuinely cared about all the players that he drafted. He really felt it was a family inside this locker room. inside the organization, and he loved it. He loved the team.
I've known Charles for quite some time. I'll never forget the first time that I met him. 19-year-old kid coming out to Long Island, and didn't know what to expect meeting the owner of the New York Islanders, and he really put me at ease. Just, you could tell he had a really good heart, a good spirit, and one thing about Charles is he had a very unique way of looking at the game. And looking at life. He was all about family. He was all about being kind to one another. His philanthropy was well known, and his work through the Smile Train was pretty inspirational.
Just being a great presence and a great person to be around and talk to, and being very open, and just a very family man that accomplished a lot in his life, and really meant a lot to a lot of us, and especially myself. When I came to New York with a lot of attention, and he made me feel just to settle right in and be myself, and to enjoy my time there, and to, always feel free to reach out, or if there's anything any of us we ever needed, that he was there for all of us. So I think just his commitment to the team, to the Islanders, to the family-like atmosphere, commitment to keeping the team on Long Island, I think all that speaks volumes about who he is as a person and as an owner.
He was so passionate about Long Island. It was his adopted home, but you can't go anywhere on the island seemingly without being exposed to some charitable or philanthropic deed that he performed to make Long Island a better place. When he bought the Islanders, he didn't know anything about hockey. He didn't know much about the Islanders or even their history on Long Island. All he knew was that he was asked essentially to save the franchise, and that's exactly what he did.
His favorite expression was, Mike, the dragon has but one head. So I knew he was the boss. We had one particular difficult negotiation with a player who shall remain nameless, and he was at $1 million base salary. And we were coming to the end of the negotiation period, and Charles had a hard negotiation period. If you didn't sign by training camp, you wouldn't play for the Islanders, he wouldn't trade you, and so this was a difficult time. So he said, well, why don't you up it to $1.5 million, but tell them that every day that they don't take it, you're going to reduce it by $100,000. So I took it to the player and his agent, and they were insulted by the offer and complained, and they went to Charles. Unbeknownst to me, that night we had dinner, and Charles sidled up to me and said, Mike, I have news for you. We signed the player. I said, we signed the player? And he said, yes. And I said, how much did we sign him for? And Charles said, $2.5 million. And then he had a big chuckle, and off to dinner we went, and that was the end of the story. I said, Charles could be, the money didn't matter. He wanted the players to be happy. He wanted the things to go smoothly, and it was carefree in many ways for him.
There have been countless other stories that have come up about Charles Wang over the last several days, all of them kind of tying into that theme of family first and working together, and also his great sense of humor and being a pretty competitive guy as well. I know lots of people will miss him. I had the pleasure of speaking with him and interacting with him a couple of times, and every single time he had the biggest smile on his face. It was a smile that could light up any room. You can see the CBW patches that the players are wearing during warm-ups for this one. That's, of course, to honor Charles B. Wang, who lost his life on Sunday. He is a man who will be missed by so many, but his memory and legacy will live on.